Hi everyone, my name is Carys Hardy. I'm originally from Edinburgh, but I'm currently working as Assistant Records Manager for the University of Manchester.
Beautiful. And what do you do outside your job?
So I actually play water polo. That's like my main thing. I've played water polo since I was about 12. Before that, I was a swimmer. So I play for the City of Liverpool water polo team, and we play in the British Water Polo League. So I go away every few months and we play big games and just enjoy ourselves. But yeah, it's a big part of my life. I coach juniors as well. I'm also a qualified referee, but I try to avoid that because I prefer playing. But yeah, my dad got me into water polo, and is still, I would say, my coach. But yeah, he got me into it, and yeah, it's been the best thing I've ever done, really, I think.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. And I come from a water background, so I swim as well. So it's quite nice to kind of be in the pool, isn't it? And have different activities and just have that release of every day and something that you enjoy. But yeah, love it, love it. So recently we met face to face at the IRMS, which was very exciting. So
Yeah,
the
amazing.
Information Records Management Society, so one of their big conference, and you won the New Professional of the Year award. Can you tell me a bit about that? And congratulations, because I think that's
Thank
super, super
you.
exciting.
I applied. You have to apply. It's an application process, and I was really keen to go to the conference, but we didn't have any funding for it. So one way is the Alison North New Professional Award. They get like free access to the conference and a couple other things. So I thought, why not? My lecturer, who I was doing my dissertation with, did suggest and advised me to go for it, and so did my manager Shan. It was an article based on my dissertation kind of results, so I focused on the impact of terminology and how that kind of affects records management practices. So the article's called "The Gap: Navigating Records Management Terminology as a New Professional." So I kind of went about it from my experience of kind of walking into the industry, kind of recognizing that there is a massive divide between the professional and the user. It boils down ultimately to communication, and one of those main aspects is terminology. And it's not from want of trying, it's just that, either side might not quite understand what we think the terminology is and what they might think the terminology is. So it was a focus on that, and I pulled out some of the main terminology, terms that I felt that were my big hitters, mainly records. Even now at work, we'll probably have a debate about what we class a record to be. Whilst there is obviously legislation and guidance around there, it is obviously very, very independent of the organisation. So my recommendations ultimately were that it would be an industry specific terminology kind of way of thinking. So instead of sticking to maybe the standards, it's adapting the terminology to where you're working. So a glossary that kind of suits both what the professionals kind of require and need, but also what the organisational culture already has, because then organisational culture is such a hard thing to kind of change. And whilst I do advocate for organisational change, small wins for example, archiving is one thing that is probably the most difficult thing for me. Archiving means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I come from a traditional background, so archives mean, the very traditional meaning of, it is a place where you store information, records for historical purposes. But a lot of people view archiving as what I would view semi-current storage. So we worked things like calling it historical archiving to really emphasize on what that version of archiving means. So ultimately, the article just discusses how important communication is, but also how important it is to adapt to the organisation you're working in, and not to go against the stream, but to try and mould it as you go forwards.
How did you enter the industry, and kind of what motivated you to come into information management?
So I originally studied history at the University of Dundee, and we had a kind of lesson about archives. So this is kind of where the whole journey starts. It's a very it's a quick one, but it's the kind of traditional archives to records management route. So I ended up volunteering for the archives at the University of Dundee. The ladies there were amazing. They supported me, and I said, I really like this. I want to take this forward. Really quite interesting. And they recommended some courses to kind of apply for. I applied for the Masters in Archives and Records Management at the University of Liverpool. I had never been to Liverpool before, came down for the interview, fell in love with the place and the university, and I was lucky enough to be approved. Funnily enough, they did ask me in the interview, do I know anything about records management? To which I honestly replied, no, I don't know anything about records management. Very, on the archive route. But after that, I realized, there's a gap there. I don't know something. I'm probably going to need to know this. So I made sure to kind of do a little bit more research. And then there was the graduate trainee role that they do at the university. And I am self-funded. I self-funded my whole degree. So I was, I did need a job. So I was like, this is perfect. It's in records management. Don't know a lot about this, but I'm going to apply for it. So I spent 2 weeks investigating, researching, making waves in records management that I'd never done before. Luckily, I was given the position, and I worked at the University of Liverpool Records Management Service alongside my degree, which I did part-time. So that's basically how I got into it. I ended up really enjoying that kind of aspect of work, whilst archives are still very much a passion of mine. I felt that my expertise, I wouldn't say expertise, but my kind of abilities and my skills were better suited to records management. And it also, in terms of my work style, it's, everything's quite new. Like, you speak to loads of people. It's a lot about communication. I really like speaking to people. I really like working on multiple different things. It really, really suits me. And I thought, this is something I think I will enjoy and I will stay in for a long time. So yeah, that's how I'm here.
Amazing. That is absolutely amazing. I love that. So what piece of advice would you give to somebody entering the industry today that you didn't know or should have known?
I think the main thing is just to be passionate and not worry too much about whether or not you know everything. So this is a question I had spoken to my manager about, because I was saying, I sit in meetings with her sometimes and I think, gosh, she knows everything. And I feel very imposter syndrome. And I said, how do you do it? I really want to be like you. And she said, honestly, it's not about knowing everything. It's just about knowing that you need to go away and either research it or where to look. And it then kind of clicked with me that this job, you're never going to be the expert with the people you're working with, but you are the expert in what you know. And it's just about trying to bring them together. So, a lot of the work I do, I actually go away and do a lot of research on kind of, say, records retention for a specific faculty or department. And it's really, that's what I really like. I really like looking into stuff. So it is just about being willing, being passionate. No one else is that interested in what we are most of the time. It's a very niche, very difficult kind of industry to kind of get pushed out. People are working really hard. They've got a lot of things to do. So if you can be passionate about it and, help them get there, you will probably succeed a lot more. I feel that just being super excited to talk about records management is the key to getting people to kind of come on the journey with you. So yeah, and also just for new people, just put yourself out there. I think the main thing for me is I weirdly have this complex where even if I think I'm not good enough for it, I just go, I'm just going to try. I'm just going to try for the experience. If nothing else, I'll learn something. And I think every single time I've done that, I've either come away learning something or I've actually ended up succeeding in what I thought I wasn't going to be able to do. So yeah, just push yourself as much as you can, whether that be speaking to new people or even going for a job that you don't think you're necessarily good enough for. 9 times out of 10, you probably are.
Yeah, and I think there's really 2 good facts in there. So you think about imposter syndrome, don't you? So
Yeah.
I think that word gets used quite a lot in our industry, but actually around everywhere, it's huge. So you talk about water polo, I swim, I sit in a swimming pool behind some people that are a lot quicker than me, a lot faster than me, and even I have imposter syndrome. But my kind of biggest thing would be is that there's always going to be people better than you. So if you keep pushing yourself, as you described, you'll always get better. But even as you get better, there's going to be people that are even better than you. So it's that thing, just to kind of keep driving yourself, driving your goals, and just being consciously aware of it.
Yeah, my dad, this is mostly for training and water polo, but he was like, you don't aim for the stars in terms of you might pick the person who's closest to you, but just a little bit ahead from you, work towards kind of leveling up, being the same as them, maybe in swim speed, and then you work to the next person, then you work to the next person, because that's more achievable than, I want to be like Michael Phelps. No, I'm not going to be able to swim like Michael Phelps in a year's time, but maybe I find someone who is a little bit quicker than me, and I'll go training with them. And if I can try and keep up with them for maybe 50% of the session, then maybe in a couple of months I'll be 75%. So just in a way, it's like finding someone who is just slightly, in your eyes, better than you, or has something that you're kind of wanting to work towards, and trying to kind of reach to that standard. But it's realistic as well.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And it's kind of interesting we're talking about this, because it goes on to the next thing that I want to talk about is that so I have ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
With my dyslexia. And one thing that's come really acutely apparent to me right now is that I've got very, very excited about my exercise regime. So I swim 3 days a week. I go to the gym twice a week for an hour session each time. So that's 5 hours in a week already. And then decided that on a Sunday morning that I'd go for a 2-hour bike ride, so 20 miles, and then swim again. So I've actually got to my ADHD of pure excitement for exercising. And now I've got to a point where I'm a little tired just from kind of exercising. Have you had kind of any experiences around ADHD or anything like that I've just described?
Yeah, so I also have ADHD myself, and that kind of want to kind of, that kind of excitement, that novelty, that things that drive you, especially when you have ADHD, I think are the main things for me. So whilst I might not be interested in some things of the job, I know that they need to be done. But at the same time, I always try to, spin it into like, how can I make this novel, exciting for me? The same thing with life, anything with ADHD, is to use it to your advantage as best you can. I think a lot of people, I don't know when you were diagnosed, when were you diagnosed with ADHD?
Undiagnosed, yeah.
No, that's okay. I was suspected when I was about 22 that I had ADHD, and I didn't get diagnosed till I was 24. And I think, well, I love that you're undiagnosed, because clearly you've just, accepted that and you've honoured that. It took for me to get a diagnosis to actually turn around and be like, it's okay that you are the way you are. I think, I grew up fearing, my ADHD traits, whereas now I totally embrace them. And I think that has made for a much more enjoyable life in and out of work, in all aspects, kind of just owning who I am completely. Yeah.
100%, because you talked about strengths and weaknesses, and you've talked about, the identity gaps between terminologies as well. And I think, people with ADHD and obviously I've got dyslexia as well, and I can't remember the neurodivergent kind of, that always finds the gap between things. So there is a huge place for us, and very much so in our industry. And I like the way you describe it, because my team have to make things fun for me to do things that I don't want to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or I have to make it fun to do something that, I don't want to do. So, yeah, it's kind of, really interesting. So thanks for kind of talking to me around that. So talking about ADHD, that was the first time we met. So I posted on LinkedIn, and I was looking for a test reader, and you came to me and said, wow, I love the image, I'll be there and I'll test read straight away. And that's kind of how we were talking. What I think some people in our industry can sometimes underutilize the role of LinkedIn. We're on LinkedIn, and we can come be those secret squirrels in the background, whether we like things or we don't like things. But I would really like to know your experience and your perspective of LinkedIn, around how we kind of met, and your view on LinkedIn for us as people to build our influences, but also for sharing the wider knowledge of our community.
I mean, I do like LinkedIn, don't get me wrong. I would still say I'm quite new to LinkedIn and the kind of posting. I decided in my second year of the master's to kind of start kind of building my LinkedIn profile, and when I started the job, I kind of picked up on that. I would love to be a bit more vocal within my LinkedIn, but just for now, I think I'm kind of scoping out kind of what works for me. I think ultimately there's benefits from LinkedIn. It's not just somewhere where you find a job. It's not somewhere where you just say, look, I've got a new job, guys. Like, it's a wealth of communication for a range of people over so many different industries. And it's a lot of people who I know, who I'm connected with, say through university or previous jobs, who probably don't know anything about what I do. And even just me liking something might teach them something. And in terms of me meeting you, obviously, with your book, that really spoke to me. And then I saw your profile, and you proudly, announced, dyslexic, ADHD, and I thought, oh wow, like, okay, this person's quite like me. I think I might like this. And I remember messaging you going, I would like to do this, but I'm not really sure like if I'm the right fit for you. But then again, I do have ADHD, so maybe it's like what you need, like I don't know. And that was a little bit of the imposter syndrome, and like you really obviously made me feel at ease, and I think it's been great. And so when I walked, and the main thing for me was I knew one extra person when I went to the IRMS conference than I thought I did, prior to meeting you. And it's like almost like having a friend, like you're going to be supported. And like the minute I met you, I was like, oh, hello, like big hug, and amazing. And I think we need more people like that in the industry, but also like on LinkedIn, who can like encourage people to kind of post. And it doesn't have to be like very strategic posting. It can just be like, this is what I did today, and it's personal development. It's not always about work. I still am very out of my depth, I won't lie, but I think it's been a great learning opportunity. And especially like after conferences or events, like it's a great way to keep in contact with people. You meet all these great people and you might not see them again till the next year, but you might want to keep in touch with them. Giving out your number is hard because you don't have time to text every single person. So LinkedIn is a really nice place to do that, but it also allows some separation from your personal life if you choose to kind of be a little bit more on the private side. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's great.
I think you've drawn it out so beautifully, because it is a way, we've not only connected on LinkedIn, but we've also established a friendship as well. And we wouldn't have done that without that connection on LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, there is a time and place for LinkedIn. Some of us as information leaders work solitude, so it can be quite lonely. So you can use LinkedIn as a network and a community for discussions. There's great knowledge sharing on there as well. But there's also the commenting on things. And I really like the way that you articulated it between professional and personal as well, because at the end of the day, we are people.
Yeah.
Behind the role of what we do, there's people behind it, and if you don't let people in, or if you don't kind of use your imposter syndrome to not put yourself forward for things, then you're not going to get the best outcome for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is there anything else you want to share with the listeners today?
Well, I think mostly it's just kind of rounding up on what we talked about in terms of like me and my journey. Like whilst I did take, the more traditional route, and everyone who comes into this industry or kind of learns about this industry is coming from different aspects. I'm really like pleased to see, the progression of the industry. I think as we kind of move into this more digital world, we are more and more becoming more and more important. And I think it's about building that community to empower everyone, empower from your book as well. And also just, I'm really happy to see the rise of apprenticeships to make the industry more inclusive. I think I really, really want to see, as much as I went down, the higher education route, I really want to see more accessible routes into this industry, because like you say, and you touched on it earlier, like we, especially people that are neurodivergent, we see patterns that other people see. We see the bigger picture. Sometimes we see the smaller picture. Whilst someone may look at me and go, you've got ADHD, why are you a records manager? Surely that's, attention to detail. Because yeah, that is some of the things I do struggle with, but also I'm passionate about it, so I know I'm going to do it. I can hyper focus, I can zone in on that kind of stuff, but also I can see things that people haven't, and I think it's such a superpower. But also we all, again, are people, and my personal experience in life will bring something to my job, and we want there to be diversity, whatever that means. It could be social class, it could be upbringing, it could be race, it could be religion, and it could be sexuality. All these things, and especially, disabilities are so important to have in the workplace, because someone who has grown up with a disability, whether they knew it or they didn't, has had to, overcome some things that other people haven't. And that, resilience, that understanding, that kind of looking at life differently from whatever aspect you are coming from I think it's just really important. So yeah, that's my overall arching.
Thank you so much for today. I'm so grateful. It's been an absolute pleasure having you.
Thank you for listening to the Journals of the Information Entrepreneur with me, Jacqueline Stockwell. I hope you found this episode inspiring and helpful, and have some takeaway tips that can be useful to you. If you liked this episode, please like, review and share it with your friends. Your support helps us reach more information leaders to stay inspired and listen to great content. Want to test out your strengths and weaknesses and measure it against our Empower framework? Please complete the scorecard. It's a great way to improve and evaluate your skills. You can find the scorecard at the end of the description of this podcast. Stay tuned for a new podcast every Thursday, and remember to be bold, be brave, and be beautiful.